Okay, I wanted to make hopefully a quick video about the different resurrections account that are found in the Bible. Um, I think it's just really interesting that the accounts mostly end with Jesus being his body is missing and he's ascended to heaven. But in the earliest account, which I'm gonna go with, I know it's contested, but um, I went to Bible Study Tools, the site that I'm reading the NIV passages from, and they gave an account. They gave the account that I tend to agree with, that Mark was first, then Matthew, then Luke, then John. So that's the order that I'm going to take. And given that Mark is the earliest, I'm going to read his account of the resurrection first, and then we'll go to Matthew, Luke, and then John. And I just want to see what the differences are because I've never really read them. I mean, you know the basic story. He died. He was crucified. He was buried in the tomb. Um, the tomb. They go discover the empty tomb, and his body's not there. But each of these books, each of the Gospels give, um, I don't want to say a slightly different account. They give a wildly different account of how this actually took place. So we're gonna start. We're gonna go line by line with Mark, and I'll just read the whole thing, and then kind of go back through and examine it. Hopefully, this won't take too long. Okay, so Mark 16, NIV. Jesus has risen when the Sabbath was over. So we got Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James, the two Marys. Mary Magdalene, Mary, the mother of James, and Salome uh, bought bought spices so that they might go anoint Jesus' body. Very early on, very early on the first day of the week, just after sunrise, they were on their way to the tomb, and they asked each other, "Who will roll away the stone away from the entrance of the tomb?" Excuse me. But when they looked up, they saw that the stone, which was very large, had been rolled away. As they entered the tomb, they saw a young man dressed in a white robe sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed. "Don't be alarmed," he said. "You are looking for Jesus of Nazarene, who was crucified. He has risen. He is not here. See the place where they laid him? But go, tell his disciples and Peter, he is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him just as he told you." Trembling and bewildered, the women went out and fled from the tomb. They said nothing to anyone because they were afraid. So let's just try to do a quick recap. And um, I don't go beyond Mark 8 because this is not only is it kind of nonsense, it starts talking about demons and exorcisms, well, expelling demons, baptism, saviors, and it states right here the earliest manuscripts and some other ancient witnesses do not have verses 9 through 20. So if you look at all of the old ones, they decided not to include verses 9 through 20 because they were just wacky. They were definitely added in later. I don't think that's really up for debate. These were not original Bible texts. You look at the Codex Sinaiticus, which is the oldest full copy of the New Testament, and these verses are not in there. Many other manuscripts don't have these in there. These were definitely added in, and if you can say, let's just say that this book was written by Mark, it's certain that Mark didn't write this. So I stop here. So trembling, they were afraid and they told no one. So let's see, we got Mary Magdalene, Mary, and Salome or Salome. Um, so these three go to the tomb. They ask who's going to roll away the tomb. The tomb had already been rolled away. They enter the tomb. They saw a young man dressed in white. He said, "You're looking for Jesus. He has already risen." Uh, Trembling, bewildered, they left. They told nobody. So let's see how this compares with Matthew's account. So this is Matthew 28. Jesus has risen. After the Sabbath, the first at dawn on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to look at the tomb. So we don't have Salome in this one. This one says that there was a violent earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven, and going to the tomb, rolled back the stone and sat on it. So we have two very different versions here. This one, they're like, who's going to roll away the tomb? And it says that they saw the stone, which had already been rolled away. And in this one, they actually witness the angel. There's an earthquake, there's an angel that descends, and he rolls back the tomb. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothes were white as snow. The guards, so we got guards in this one, were so afraid that they shook and became like dead men. The angel said to the women, "Do not be afraid. I know what you are looking for. It was Jesus who was crucified." So you could say that this was, so in Mark's account, this was probably the angel that they were referring to, who was sitting inside the tomb, where he's the one that said, "Don't be alarmed." But we have two different accounts. So the earliest account is kind of basic, and I think it gets a little more wild as time goes on. When you look at the different dates of the gospel, the dates that the gospels were written, the earliest one, Mark, kind of is a little basic. There's no angel. Well, the angel's already inside the tomb. I mean, you can assume that this is the angel that they're referring to in Mark. So, or I'm sorry, in Matthew. So the angel said to the women, "Don't be afraid. I know you're looking for Jesus who was crucified. He is not here. He has risen, just as he said. Come and see the place where he lay." That's pretty similar. "Then go quickly and tell the disciples, he has risen from the dead and is going ahead of you into Galilee." That's pretty similar. "There you will see them. Now I have told you." So the women hurried away from the tomb, afraid yet filled with joy, and ran to tell the disciples. So they're still afraid in this one, just like in Mark, trembling and bewildered. They're afraid. They said nothing because they were afraid. They didn't tell. They said nothing to anyone. In this one, they're still afraid, but now they're filled with joy, and they ran to tell the disciples. Suddenly Jesus met them. "Greetings," he said. They came to him, clasped his feet, and worshipped him. Then Jesus said, "Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There they will see me." So a little bit different account. So the guards report. While the women were on their way, some of the guards went into the city and reported to the chief priests everything that had happened. When the chief priests had met with the elders, they devised a plan. They gave the soldiers a large sum of money, telling them, "You are to say, his disciples came during the night and stole him away while we were asleep. If the guards' report gets together, we will satisfy him and keep you out of trouble." So the soldiers took the money and did as they instructed, and this story has been widely circulated among the Jews to this very day. So, I mean, I don't know. That might have happened. Maybe the guard's report was accurate. I don't know. Anyway, so now we got Matthew's account. So we got the earthquake, and we got the angel of the Lord coming down, and him rolling back the tomb. A little bit different account. Then we'll go to Luke, see what his account has to say. On the first day of the week, very early in the morning, the women. So now we just have the women. Took spices. They had prepared. So we went from Mary Magdalene, and Salome to Mary and Mary Magdalene, and now it's just the women took the spices they had prepared and went to the tomb. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb. Okay, so we're losing the earthquake and the angel coming down and moving it in this one again, and the stone's already rolled away. But when they entered, they did not find the body of Lord Jesus. While they were wondering about this, suddenly two men in clothes that gleamed like lightning stood beside them. So this might be, I don't know, is there a guards report in this one? Are the guards not here in this one? Because in Matthew, The guards also witnessed and felt this earthquake and witnessed the angels coming down, and they were afraid and like dead men. So I guess we're getting rid of the guards in this one, and we're not just having one angel in the tomb or outside the tomb sitting on the rock, inside the tomb like Mark, outside the tomb sitting on the rock like Matthew. Now we have um, two men in clothes that gleamed like lightning stood beside them suddenly. So I guess they just appeared. In the fright, the women bowed down with their faces to the ground, but the men said to them, "Why do you look for the living among the dead?" Um, so this is, I guess, Luke's version of the one angel, but now it's two, and this is kind of similar to what they're saying in the other accounts. Why are you looking for him? He is risen. He is not here. He has risen. Remember how he told you while he was still with you in Galilee? The Son of Man must be delivered over to the hands of sinners, be crucified on the third day, and be risen again. So we're getting a little bit more stuff added in here because the two previous angels in the two earlier accounts said nothing um, about this oddly specific phrasing. Then they remembered his words. When they came back from the tomb, they told all. Okay, so we lost the fact that they were afraid, trembling and bewildered. So we're tossing that out. And now, when they came back from the tomb, they told all these things to the 11 and to all the others. So in this account, they're not afraid. It was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary, mother of James, and the others who told this to the apostles. So now we have a new character. Unless Joanna, I'm not extremely familiar with biblical names. Let's look that up. Is Joanna? Joanna New Testament. I don't think that's Salome. Joanna's mentioned along with Mary Magdalene, Mary Mother James. No, so Salome or Salome is a different character. I just wanted to confirm that. So now we have Salome being replaced with Joanna. But they did not believe the women because their words seemed like nonsense. Oh, so no, they're not even believing them. Peter, however, got up and ran to the tomb, bending over. He saw the strips of linen lying by themselves, and he went away, wondering to himself what had happened. Oh, boy. So is this still the resurrection account? Let's see. Now the two of them were going to the village. They were talking to each other about everything that happened. As they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up. Okay. So now this is on the road to Emmaus? We'll say Emmaus. But didn't Jesus come on the road to Galilee in the earlier accounts? It says it could be maybe Galilee is similar or equivalent to Emmaus. But yeah, go tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There they will see me in Galilee. And Luke, and this part I could be confused about because I'm not extremely confident in these two locations. But this is on the road to Emmaus, not Galilee. About 7 miles from Jerusalem. They're talking, but they were kept from recognizing him. Wonder why, or how they were kept. He asked them, "What are you discussing together as you walk so long?" They stood still, their faces downcast. One of them, named Cleopas, asked him, "Are you the only one visiting Jerusalem who does not know these things that have happened here in these days?" "What things?" "Oh, look at Jesus trolling." "I don't know what you're talking about." Anyway, he asked about Jesus of Nazareth. He was a prophet, powerful in the word. Okay, so we got a lot more added in Luke's version, which is most certainly older than Mark and Matthew. So this is what I was talking about in the beginning. The further you go along in these books, the more that gets added in. I mean, we got to earthquakes and angels coming down, and now Jesus is quite literally trolling the apostles here. The chief of priests and our rulers handed him over a sentence to death, and they crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel. And what is more, is the third day since all this took place. It is the third day since all this took place. In addition, some of our women amazed us. They went to the tomb early this morning, but didn't find his body. They came and told us that they had seen a vision of angels. Okay, so do we get the angels added in a little bit later in? The angels weren't up here, right? Oh, this is the one where there were two angels. Okay, yeah. Okay, so we got the two angels who said he was alive. Then some of our companions went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but they did not see Jesus. He said to them, "How foolish you are! How slow to believe all that prophets have spoken. Did not the Messiah have to suffer these things and then enter his glory?" Jesus. Literally. At the beginning, and beginning with Moses and all prophets, he exclaimed to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning himself. This is long. As they approached the village to which they were going, Jesus continued on as if he were going farther. But they urged him strongly, "Stay with us, for it is nearly evening. The day is almost over." So he went to stay with them. Okay. When he was when he was at the table with them, he took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and began to give it to them. Their eyes were open when they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. They asked each other, "Were our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us?" They got up, returned at once to Jerusalem. They found the 11. Oh, so he was not traveling with the apostles. Assembled together and saying, "It is true, the Lord has risen. He has appeared to Simon." Isn't a common apologetic that Jesus appeared to the women first? I know the angels spoke to the women, but did Jesus speak to them? Why do you look? The angels said that. Son of Man must be delivered. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so he's telling, in this one, he's telling Simon about the business first. Appeared to Simon. The two Then the two told what had happened along the way and how Jesus recognized them by when he broke the bread. Okay, so we get the resurrection. Jesus is risen. This is what we're going to do. That's so long. Okay, and then we'll go into John. Let's see what John has to say. So the empty tomb. On the early of the first day, okay, Mary Magdalene. Okay, so we got Mary Magdalene named specifically. But so now in this count, so in Mark's account, let's just do a quick recap of that. We got Mary, Salome, and Mary, the mother of James. In Matthew's account, we got Mary and Mary. In Luke's account, we got the women. And now in John's account, we just got Mary Magdalene. Early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene went to the tomb and saw that the stone had... Okay, so we're not doing the earthquake and the angels bit in this account. So the stone is already removed from the entrance. So she came running to Simon Peter and the other disciple. What happened to the whole... Okay. So she came running to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one Jesus loved. That's harsh. And said, "They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we don't know where they have put him." Okay. And said, so Mary, in this account, Mary runs up to Peter and says, "They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and they don't know where they put him." So did the angels come in this one? Or any form of angel come? So Peter and the other disciple started for the tomb. Oh, okay. So that's wildly different. So we got, let's just do another quick recap. We got Mary, and Salome. And then we have inside the tomb, sitting on the right side, we got a young man dressed in white. And in Matthew's account, we got the violent earthquake and then the angels coming down, scaring the guards. And he removes the stone. In Luke's account, they found the stone rolled away from the tomb, but when they entered it, they did not find. Suddenly, two men in clothes that gleamed like lightning stood beside them. And now in John's account, We got none of that. There's no angel. There's no two angels. There's no person sitting inside the tomb. She comes up. She sees that it's empty. So she runs to Peter. At least the angel hasn't been introduced yet. So Peter and the other disciples started for the tomb. Both were running, but the disciples outran Peter and reached the tomb first. He bent over and looked at the strips of linen laying there, but did not go in. The Simon Peter came along behind them and went straight into the tomb. He saw the strips of linen lying there, as well as the cloth that had been wrapped around Jesus' head. The cloth was still lying in its place, separate from the linen. Finally, the other disciple, who had reached the tomb first, also went inside. He saw and he believed. Well, that was easy. They still did not understand from Scripture that Jesus had to rise from the dead. Okay. Then the disciples went back to where they were staying. Wow. Okay, so I was a little wrong. That got real boring real quick. We went from a person sitting in there to earthquakes and angels to two men in clothes that gleamed like lightning and stood beside them to she saw it. She told Peter. They went there. They saw that it was empty, and then they went home. Interesting. We'll read a little bit more of this. Now Mary stood outside the tomb crying. As she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb and saw the two angels. Okay, so we do got the angels. Now Mary stood outside the tomb crying. As she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb, and she saw two angels in white, seated where Jesus. Okay, so now the two angels are inside the tomb, sitting almost as if this was Mark's account about the one person, young man in white, sitting. Okay. They asked her, "Why are you crying?" "They have taken my Lord away," she said, "and I don't know where they have put him." Okay. At this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not realize that it was Jesus. Okay, so in this account, and I want to go back through Luke's account real quick. So in this account, yet again, he appears to Mary Magdalene first, but I'm pretty sure in Luke he appears to Simon Peter first, right? No. Village called Emus. The two of them, being Peter, bending over the strips. Okay, so now the same day they're going to the Jews. They're talking to each other about everything that happened. Discussed. They stood up faces. So we got Cleopas and Peter, I believe, or Simon. Cleopas asked him, Are you only visiting?" Okay, sorry, I went a little too far. As they talked and discussed, Jesus himself came up and walked beside them. So Jesus is definitely appearing to Cleopas and I do believe Simon Peter is the other person in this party. So he definitely appears to them first in this account. Unless I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, give me a comment. But that's how I'm definitely reading it. 11 others were restored. Some asked much there to another day. He has risen. Right. So yeah, we got the angels telling the women first, but Jesus in this account definitely appears to the others first. Anywho, at this she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but did not realize it was Jesus. So it's kind of similar to Luke's account where they said that Jesus was trolling them and saying like, I don't know what's going on in this town, but it was Jesus the whole time. But they were somehow barred from recognizing him. But she did not realize that it was Jesus. Kind of similar to that. He asked women, "Why are you crying? Who is it that you were looking for?" Thinking he was the gardener. Lady, that was Jesus. She said, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him." Okay, this is an entirely new account. "Tell me where you have put him." Jesus said to her, "Mary." She turned towards him and cried out in Aramaic, "Rabboni," which means teacher. Jesus said, "Do not hold on to me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father. Go instead to my brothers and tell them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." Mary Magdalene went to the disciples with the news, "I have seen the Lord," and she told them that he had said these things to her. So now we again in this account. Um, so in Mark's account, they were trembling, bewildered, and afraid, so they didn't say anything to anybody. Matthew, um, um, the women hurried away from the tomb, afraid yet filled with joy, and they did tell the disciples. In Luke's account, um, Mary, and Joanna, and the others, when they came back to the tomb, remember his words. So this just doesn't mention anything about their disposition, how they about what had happened. They're not afraid or. Okay, what says in their fright the women bowed down their faces to the ground. But when they left, they just went and told the people. But they're like, yeah, right. Then in John's account, it was just Mary Magdalene who went to the disciples with the news. I have seen the Lord, and she told them the things he said to her. So, in all of these accounts end with an empty tomb, but none of them really end with uh, Jesus being resurrected. But they definitely do all end with a mysteriously empty tomb. But I hope you can see how vastly, wildly these accounts differentiate from one another between how the tomb was opened, who discovered the tomb, how they felt about the tomb being discovered, who they told about the tomb being empty. In one report, we got some guards who were involved and actually saw these. So the guards in is it Luke's account? Um, no, I think it was Matthew's account. The guards report, yeah. So in this one, we have the guards witnessing angels coming down, but instead of being like freaked out, well, I mean they were freaked out, but they decided to spread a lie because they got some money in return. But I mean, if they saw, they literally saw angels coming down, and they're like, if you pay us, we'll not tell anybody that we saw literal angels from God. But anywho, so we got some guard reports in this one, and then the Great Commission, which is not related to this, but uh, um, I mean, it's just they're wildly different. And I go through these line by line yourself and kind of see just how vastly different these accounts really are. Um, I guess they do all end with an empty tomb, and that is the point of the story. But it's just interesting that just how wildly different they are, and in some cases, uh, irreconcilably different. They just make no sense when you come. I mean, in some cases, one thing, if something happened in this case, I guess what I mean is that not all four of these accounts can be true because of how much they differ, especially with um, who Jesus report. I mean that's like a huge apologetic. I mean, this is actually my first time sitting down and reading through all these, but they say that one reason you can think that the Bible is accurate is because they would never have women uh, be the ones to that Jesus would appear to first because nobody liked women back then and nobody would have believed them. So why would they have women do it? They would have had men do it if they wanted to be more believable. But they're not going for believability; they're going for what actually happened. But in one account, he doesn't even appear to them first, so that's pretty strange. Anyway, this video went on a little bit longer than I had intended, so I'm going to end it here.